Alright, let's do this. So, a couple days ago I uploaded this video named 1000 Cut Screw, and in it I said that I will delve a bit deeper into some of the topics discussed in it. Yeah, this is that video, so strap in, grab some popcorn or some beverage, and prepare for a long one, probably. Knowing myself, most likely. So the idea, as you may already know, was to cast Spike Growth, hope the enemies are not immune to non-magic piercing damage, and then basically push and pull them around for 145 extra damage on average of push and pull effects, basically forced movement. That is the idea, right? Now, there are ways to do this with multiple different character compositions, but I kind of chose one that's in between optimal and interesting, fun to play. Obviously, the driving engine of the party would be the Dao Warlock, 3 levels of Dao Warlock and 2 levels of Fighter. Well, because, you know, you get Spike Growth as a Dao Genie, and then also, obviously, you have Eldritch Blast, you have the Meta Magic Adept that you get from the custom lineage, so basically level 1 feat, which you take to get, you know, what's the name? The Meta Magic Feat Adept, and then obviously you take the pushing ability, the pushing invocation, which is called Repelling Blast, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. It's somewhere in here, I don't know. Yes, there we go. So when you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, you can push the creature up to 10 feet away. So basically, when you compound Fighter's level 2 feature Action Surge, which gives you another action, and then Warlock's ordinary action, just like every other character, compounded with the Meta Magic Adept feat, which gives you the Quicken Meta Magic, which allows you to basically cast Spike Growth as a bonus action. You have a lot of actions during a single turn, which allows you to set up this Spike Growth and push enemies up to 40 feet if everything hits. Now, obviously, not everything is going to hit, which is why you have stuff that helps you. Most of the stuff is the rest of your party mates, or the rest of the party mates of this character. But also you have the Genie's Vessel, which is Genie's Wrath, which gives you additional 1d8 bludgeoning in this case damage. I would say that this is magical damage because it originates from a magical vessel. Talk to your DM. I would personally rule it that way, right? Now, in terms of the Pact Boon, I would say that Pact of the Tome makes... I kind of like Pact of the Tome the most. I'm just biased, maybe it's my subjective opinion. I like having cantrips and stuff like that. However, Pact of the Talisman makes the most thematic sense because you are, after all, a Genie Warlock. And what other Pact Boon would a Genie Warlock give you than a Talisman, right? You already have the Vessel, the Urn, the whatever, and now you get this, right? It's kind of like up to a character that plays this, player that plays this character. But yeah, that's pretty much about that. Now, in terms of Pact Magic, obviously you get a lot of spells and cantrips other than just Eldritch Blast and Spike Growth. You get Lightning Lure, which is a decent alternative to Eldritch Blast when you need to pull the creature instead of pushing it. Minor Illusion, Friends, and Mage Hand, obviously these cantrips are always useful. Whichever you choose is, you know, probably the one that you're gonna use, right? It kind of depends on the playstyle, the DM, or your own preferences, right? Armor of Agathis is pretty much always good because you first and foremost give the character a bit more hit points, and then obviously can even deal a bit more damage in melee. Obviously with 3 levels in Warlock, you get 2nd level slots, so basically you get 10 temporary hit points and 10 damage once the creature in melee hits you, right? Misty Step is there for better positioning. 40 feet of pushing is actually quite a lot, and you might need to reposition yourself in a way so that the pushing is not too much, right? You don't want to push the target outside of the Spike Growth area. Shatter, AoE, sometimes destroy objects, cave-in tunnels and stuff like that. And after all, finally, right, suggestion, I'd say, you know, this fits this character because obviously you are a party face. Nobody's better than you at charisma, so suggestion is kind of like that little bit of a magical help in that department. Obviously you gain you gain the fighter features, so medium armor and shield proficiency, as well as the defense fighting style. I would probably take defense with this character, even though you just could take anything pretty much. But yeah, this one makes the most sense because you want to prevent yourself from getting hit, right? Talking about fighter, we do have one full-on fighter in this party. Pretty simple one. It's a Battlemaster Githyanki. I chose Githyanki again because you gain Misty Step, and this character has a capability of pushing enemies quite a lot through spike growth. And if we go back to the Warlock, we will notice that the radius is 20 feet, so basically the diameter is 40. So with the 60 feet of possible capability of being pushed, that's actually quite a lot. So for the fighter specifically, and obviously most of the other characters as well, you want an extra mobility. Now, I could have taken any other race that gains some kind of bonus action move, goblins, tabaxis, you know, stuff like that, but I chose Githyanki, well, because, you know, there's that female known as Lae'zel in Baldur's Gate 3, and I just kind of like grown to like Githyankis over time. Battlemaster fighter, obviously, you gain the maneuvers. The most important one is the pushing maneuver, because it pushes the creature 15 feet away. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with this one. This character has the potential to push the enemies, drag the enemies with force movement the most, but it is limited to large or smaller creatures. So, yeah, I mean, if you're fighting a huge or a gargantuan enemy, this might become a problem, but luckily and thankfully the rest of the party has enough forced movement capabilities to offset the fighter's inability to do so. Now, obviously, I would also give this thing a sharpshooter, because just in case you're fighting a enemy with, let's say, relatively low armor class, and for whatever reason there's no spike growth around, you would want to have a bit of a more damage, just a flat out plus 10 with a -5 penalty to hit, especially because you take the archery fighting style, right? So with a +2 bonus to attack rolls, your penalty with the sharpshooter is basically a -3. And yeah, that's pretty much it about the fighter. Misty Step already discussed. Now, in terms of the maneuvers, the only one that really matters for this gimmick, this concept, is the pushing one. However, you get to choose multiple ones, so I would go with the precision attack always, because first and foremost, it synergizes very well with the sharpshooter feat, even though you do want to burn all of your superiority dice on pushing attack. You have 4, but yeah, basically precision is the better synergy with sharpshooter, and obviously sometimes it might be actually beneficial to trip attack to make the enemies prone, so that when they get up they waste their movement speed, and then on top of that spike growth is also an area of difficult terrain, so they would have to spend a lot of movement to get out of it and get hurt in the process, right? Now, onto the wizard. The wizard is kind of like, let's say, I don't know, maybe probably the most, I would say, controversial one out of here, because, well, I picked the controversial race, controversial class, everything, right? Wizards are always powerful. What's better than a wizard? Well, a wizard with healing spells. Now, in terms of the healing spells, there are kind of like 2 ways around it. There's a healing halfling, obviously, with a healing word and cure wounds. I would pretty much just always have healing word. Cure wounds I don't think is necessary. But the Mark of Hospitality halfling actually has good stuff too, because the good berry is kind of like the pinch healing, which restores 1 hit point. But it also gets aid. And aid is a spell that is very, very good for basically just pushing everybody's hit points up. I would personally probably go with the healing halfling. Ultimately, it's up to your DM. If the DM doesn't allow you, then it really kind of doesn't matter. The main component is the Chronology Wizard, which is the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount book, subclass from that book. I took it because the basically Chronal Shift, which allows you to have a reaction option that after a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes a saving throw in this particular case. That's what we are going for. You can force the creature to reroll after you see whether the roll succeeds or fails, right? So obviously there are a lot of saving throws that this party inflicts upon enemies, and this character allows the party to basically allows everybody to have a higher probability of at least one of their effects to push or pull the creature closer, including this owner's character's capabilities. Pulse Wave is one of those lesser known spells, also from the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount, and basically it forces creatures to be pushed or pulled 15 feet away or to you, which is pretty good synergy with the Spike Growth, because on top of the damage that you do with the Pulse Wave, which is 6d6, so not really that far off of the Fireball, and also it's force damage, so it's less resisted. You get a ton of Spike Growth damage, so basically 15 feet would be 6d4, which is, I don't know, times 2.5, which is like 15 extra damage. This is actually quite a lot, especially if you can get multiple enemies, multiple creatures affected by it. This spell is really capable of doing some hurt. Now, Chronal Shift, already discussed that. You do want to use it only on your own Pulse Wave or this character, on the Pulse Wave or the Battle Master's pushing maneuver, because, well, you get a limited amount of uses of Chronal Shift, and you want to use them on the things that push the enemies or pull them as much as possible. So in this case, it would obviously be 15 feet away, and in the case of Pulse Wave, it would be 15 feet away or forward. So these are the biggest, like the most effective one instance push or pull effects that the party has access to. Telekinetic Feet is there to just give you 5 extra feet of pushing or pulling. And also it's a bonus action, so synergizes well with a Pulse Wave, which is an action, Chronal Shift, which is a reaction, and obviously this is a bonus action. As a wizard, you get a lot of spells. I would take Lightning Lure just to have a cantrip option in case you run out of slots or whatever, right? Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Mold Earth, all of these are really, really good. I don't know why I didn't open up a Mold Earth here, but yeah, basically those are obviously the utility cantrips that you usually default to anyway, so there's no reason not to take them for this character. Mage Armor, obviously you need higher armor class. Shield, even higher with a reaction. And then Absorb Elements, just in case you start getting hit with a lot of elemental type of attacks like Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, which does tend to happen, or at least start to happen a little bit more around level 5, which is what this party has kind of like been designed around. Don't forget the Healing Word that you get from the Mark of Healing Halfling, or Aid if you decide to go with the Hospitality. Each one is good. Now, Misty Step, obviously similar reason I would go with the Misty Step here, because extra mobility is always needed in a pinch. There's variables like monster's movement speed, how far away it is, how far away are you from the monster, initiative order, right? All of those things, and Misty Step actually kind of always, or at least often, helps solve the mobility and positioning issues. Enhance Ability is one of those spells that is, I think, important, and I would definitely have it prepared in this party, particularly Cat's Grace, because you want to cast this on the Warlock Fighter, so that the Warlock Fighter gets the biggest odds of playing first in the initiative order, or at least playing before the monster plays, right? And giving advantage to the character that already has +4, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, +2, sorry. +2. Yes, 14 dexterity is pretty good. So, like, advantage with a +2 is better than just one roll with a +2, right? So that's it for that. I do want to mention a couple more things. So basically, Enhance Ability. Earthbind is a spell that helps everybody deal with flying creatures. Now, it's not the only one, obviously. There are other things that restrain and do stuff like that. Things like Web, right? But Earthbind specifically deals with flying creatures, and since it's a strength saving throw, and this is, I believe, a dexterity save. Yeah, there's a little bit of a flexibility, because now you have a choice between Web, which is a dex save, and Earthbind, which is a strength save, particularly against flying enemies. Speaking about flying enemies running outside of the Spike Growth area, there is Vortex Warp, which, again, it's one of those new spells that DM may or may not allow, but if it is allowed, I would definitely take it, because it's a 2nd level spell that basically allows the Wizard and the Artificer, which I'm gonna talk about soon, to put the enemy where the wizard wants, right? Which is basically in most cases middle of the spike growth, so that the enemy has to spend most of its movement running away out of it, right? So that's that. Web, already kind of like discussed it before just a minute ago. Restrained condition is really good because first the movement speed is 0 and everybody's attack rolls have advantage. The creature has disadvantage on dex saves. The last bullet point is not that really important, but yeah, I mean the restrained condition also, even if the creature wants to like not be restrained, it has to use its action to make a strength check, so therefore it cannot use its action to attack or dash or do anything that would prevent it from getting bled to death via the spike growth spell. Slow, obviously, -2 to armor class helps a lot of party members hit more often. Dexterity saving throws is really good with the things like, you know, web, which is... Both of these are concentration, but there are redundancies in this party. And, you know, the limited action economy, I always like this spell. And also against spellcasters, it's a really good solid control spell with a lot of effects. And I would pretty much take this for this party. I think it's a good synergy. Obviously, counterspell will prevent a lot of enemies using, first and foremost, teleporting spells like Misty Step to get out of spike growth. But obviously, any other spell that would control, damage, or do any nasty thing to any party member that this wizard is in. And then finally, Leomund's Tiny Hut, obviously the best level 3 utility / exploration spell, which allows the party to have basically safe long rests in the middle of the wilderness, in hostile territories and stuff like that. It can be dispelled, so spellcasters can just pretty much make it go away, but at least it's only spellcasters. If you don't have this spell, if nobody in a party does have it, long rests are, in my experience, significantly more dangerous. Let's call it that way. Now, onto the druid. This character really doesn't have that much push or pull effect, but the reason I included one more character that has access to spike growth is, well, because it's always good to have a bit of redundancy. And also you need somebody to kind of take on the role of a healer and a support caster. For the race I picked Turtle, which I didn't open in any of these tabs, but basically I have a pet Turtle and I think a party without at least one Turtle is kind of, you know, whatever. So there you go. Also passive armor class of 19 is nice. 17 from the Turtle shell and +2 from the shield. 19, pretty good, I think. It doesn't really matter that much for this character, but it's always good to have higher armor class. For the class, I specifically chose the Circle of the Stars. Why? Well, because if you want to cast Spike Growth, it's a concentration spell, and you have this Starry Form feature, Dragon, which allows you to basically have a minimum of 10 on the d20 roll whenever you roll for concentration, right? And if the Warlock Fighter is concentrating on a Spike Growth, which also, by the way, his concentration checks saves will be buffed. More on that very soon. A Constellation of Archer appears on you because why would you do this when you can just do 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier of extra damage. So that's it basically about the stuff. Lorehold Student, there's a way to gain, like, this party would benefit from Bless. So when you're dealing with high, let's say high armor class enemies, you would definitely benefit from the Bless condition, which is +1d4 to all attack rolls, and this party has a lot of attack rolls. And yeah, this background allows you to take it because you basically gain cleric spells through it. Key components already kind of discussed, but yeah, let's also mention the two main ways to push or pull the enemies 10 feet away or from you. So Thunder Wave, obviously 10 feet away, Thorn Whip 10 feet closer. This is like, both of them are kind of short range, so you have to be a little bit closer. But that's fine because you don't really contribute to the force movement as much as you contribute to just overall, let's say, the well-roundedness of the party, right? Other notable features: you gain the Guidance cantrip for free. Absorb elements obviously makes sense. Oh, Guidance cantrip, yeah. Let me not just breeze through it. If nobody in a party has it, all of the ability checks will be worse, and sometimes you might even be able to give this to the Warlock. Warlock Fighter for that character to have even higher ability initiative initiative rolls, right? Absorb elements, kind of already discussed that, no reason not to take it. Good berry, sorry about that, will definitely help the party, you know, with the food, so with the rations, and also sometimes if they lose hit points, this is a spell that gets them back at least to 1 hit point, right? Entangle, it's one of those first level spells that would allow this character to actually deal with flying enemies, and obviously any kind of enemy that's trying to escape the spike growth through any means, right, other than just teleporting using some magical ability. I don't think there's a reason not to take it, especially if the Warlock is concentrating on the spike growth. You definitely want to maybe sometimes use this just to keep the enemy at bay. Fairy Fire, again, now you have a lot of concentration spells, but just in case the party needs advantage against multiple enemies, let's say, or one tough enemy, where even the Blessed wouldn't help, Fairy Fire would definitely come in handy, and there's no reason not to have it, right? Earthbind, again, a little bit of redundancy. This character has a lot of redundancies for the Wizard and the Warlock. Dealing with flying enemies is pretty much what we need. Enhanced ability, again, another redundancy via the Cat's Grace, giving the Warlock advantage on initiative. Dexterity checks is always good. Conjure Animals, now this is kind of like controversial as well, because it's up to the DM the way the DM runs this spell. If the DM lets you choose the form, this spell you become the de facto main forced movement. This character is the main forced movement character in the entire party, because if you like summon 4 warhorses, each with wait, let me find it. So yeah, there we go. Each with 60 feet of movement speed, each one grappling the enemy and dragging them for 30 feet. Because when you drag, you basically spend the double your movement speed. That's a lot of that's like 120 feet of dragging through the spike growth potentially, by just dragging them by the edge. And yeah, that's a lot of extra damage. Now obviously it's up to the DM. By design, this spell has been made so that the GM chooses the creature statistics, which means that the GM chooses the stat block. Either way is good. It's just good to have this spell with or without spike growth, because sometimes you just want to throw bodies at the field, and for whatever reason, right? Finally, Revivify, even though the spell here doesn't really state that it's a druid spell, it is. I went and checked with the Tasha again, because I remember that the druids got this spell when I first read it, and yeah, luckily I wasn't wrong. And now we have the Artificer as the last class. The Artificer is like very focused support. It gets a lot of thingies that the Warlock will love. First and foremost, there's the, well, I chose Goblin. I like the Goblin. Artillerist gets just a bit more pushing and pulling than the ordinary Artillerist. Background really kind of doesn't matter. What matters are the key components, right? So Enhanced Arcane Focus. In this case, let me just enhanced, not there, but over here. There we go. It's a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls. It's not a lot, but the Warlock will definitely appreciate it. Going from a +6 to a +7, it's like a permanent 5% accuracy buff, which obviously also extends even further because the creature ignores half cover, and half cover is basically +2 bonus to armor class for the Warlock. And yeah, that's pretty much this can be situationally quite a bit of a accuracy buff. The second buff is probably even more important, which is the Mind Sharpener. You remember, as we talked about the Druid with its dragon form being able to roll a minimum of 10 on the d20 every time he rolls a Constitution saving throw to concentrate. Well, with Mind Sharpener, a fail is basically a success. As long as the Warlock Fighter, obviously you would give this to the Warlock Fighter, or at least that would probably be the most optimal thing that this character can do. With the 4 charges, basically the Warlock can use its reaction to succeed on the saving throw instead of fail. Now obviously if there are multiple saving throws and only 1 reaction per round, the Warlock still might fail, but you know, that's why we have the Druid in a party, as discussed before, who can also cast Spike Growth. That's it for the infusions. This character has Thunder Wave and Thorn Whip similar to the Druid. Also Lightning Lure, just in case you are dealing with low strength, high armor class enemies, because that can happen. If you can't hit with a Thorn Whip, better use Lightning Lure, because at the end of the day, it's kind of gonna do the same, just push the enemy 10 feet in a straight line toward you. Shield you get for free, basically from your subclass. Absorb Elements again makes sense at level 5, because the instances of taking any of these damage types happens more often. Fairy Fire, just a little bit more redundancy so that the Druid doesn't have to do all the work. Cure Wounds, obviously a little bit of a healing. Web, discussed that. Vortex Warp, redundancy. And after all, Goblin, which is a Fury of the Small feature. Not the really big reason to take Goblin. I took the Goblin more for the, let's say, comedic effect, or just to keep the party a bit more varied. But yeah, this is a little bit of a more extra damage. Now, I did forget one thing, and I just remembered. Artillerist basically gets an Eldritch Cannon, and you want Force Ballista, which is 2d8 force damage, and it pushes the creature up to 5 feet away from you. So yeah, there you go. That's pretty much it. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below if I've missed anything, and until next time, drink water, sleep well, talk to you soon.